Ranger Marty, where are you?
I'm right here, Shalene. Where are you? Oh, I see you. How you doing today, Shalene?
I'm wonderful.
Hey, that's Miss Shalene Daniels. She's a park ranger here at the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Park, along with me. Marty Smith is a park ranger at the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historical Park. And we have another park ranger that I need to call on my phone, Miss Diane. Miss Diane, can you come in?
Oh, it's not quite clear.
Miss Diane, we need you.
Marty on the phone?
We need you, Miss Diane.
I hear you now.
All right.
Loud and clear. Boy, these are tried and true phones, so they do work, and we're going to learn how to make one.
So you see now how far technology has taken us, and you see how powerful technology is. So today what I'd like to do is kind of just talk with you a little bit about our program. This is our series number 5. This is what if Dr. King would have a cell phone, but we're going to talk about how important today was. Today, 57 years ago, some amazing thing would have happened today. This was 57 years ago when Dr. King made his famous I Have a Dream speech on August 28th, 1963. So today we want to talk with you a little bit about it. We're going to show you little videos about it. We're going to allow you to see some kids who talk about the video, but we're going to also give you a little information, because what we like to do with this program, we like to give you history, and then we like for you to do a craft. So what our program is called Parks and Craft, because we're going to share with you a little bit about this park and the history of Dr. King, and then we're going to allow you to do a little bit of craft. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to walk. We're inside the Visitor Center. This is the Martin Luther King Jr. National Historic Park Visitor Center. This Visitor Center, we have a lot of exhibits inside here that kind of tell you the stories about Dr. King, so you'll walk through and you'll see exhibits on Dr. King. And we want you to really come back and you can visit and see the Visitor Center yourself. So what we're going to do today is I'm going to share with you some amazing stories about Dr. King. Just come around this corner. Come around this corner and take a look at this first exhibit right here. And you're going to see 1955. 1955 is when Dr. King received his doctor's degree at Boston University. He became also a minister at Dexter Avenue Baptist Church, and he was elected to lead the Montgomery Bus Boycott. As we go to 1956, you'll see that Dr. King's house was bombed. He was harassed by the police, and also is when the Montgomery Bus Boycott ends. 1957, they speak about, you talk about Dr. King being a great organizer, they'll speak about the Southern Christian Leadership Conference. And of course, that's one of the organizations that he helped start. And then you have the Time magazine. And you might look at Time magazine and say, we got Time magazine today. Yes, we do. But back then, to get in Time magazine, it was pretty powerful. Because one thing you realize that because they didn't have the communication that we have today, they didn't have the internet that they can go on the internet. The way they communicated was through magazines, newspapers, and through mail. So by Dr. King becoming on Time magazine, it made him very popular. So you think about it today, when you get on your phone and you can look and you can see over 500 people say like. But Dr. King back then, what like mean was being appeared on Time magazine. So we're going to look at 1959, and that's of course when Dr. King went to India. And that's also when Dr. King decides that he's moving back to Atlanta. And as we go over here, you're going to see 1960. 1960. In 1960, Dr. King did a sit-in in Atlanta department store. And what's amazing is, look what this sentence says right here. Dr. King makes plans with activist Bernard Rustin to boycott both the Democrat and the Republican National Convention. So you've been seeing a lot of that lately about the Democrat and the National Convention. But 57 years, when 1960, Dr. King was deciding to boycott that National Convention. All right? So in 1963 right here, we have when Dr. King did the letter from Birmingham jail, and also when he did the famous I Have a Dream speech. And you can see that's at Lincoln Memorial, and he had over 250,000 people that were surrounded around the Lincoln Memorial on that day. So this is the date in 1963, on August 28th, when Dr. King made that famous speech, I Have a Dream. And of course, he wasn't the only speaker that was on there. One recently, the gentleman who just passed away, Congressman John Lewis, was the youngest speaker to speak during that period of time. but they also was organized by a gentleman by the name of A. Philip Randolph, and he helped organize the March on Washington in 1963. All right? So we're going to walk over here, and I want to show you another exhibit that we want to take some looks at some of the pictures inside here. And we're looking at this history. History is always important. We want you to take a look at some of the lunch counter sit-ins right there. See some of the things that happened at the lunch counter sit-ins during that period of time. Take a look over here at Dr. King. All right, that's Dr. King at one of his boycotts. All right, you see the committee of people that he had that helped represent him during that period of time. This is Reverend Fred Shuttlesworth. That's Ralph Abernathy that you see right there, and that's Mr. James Lawson.
And not a single cell phone.
Yep. And look at the way they dress. When they marched looking like they was going to church service every Sunday. They looked good when they marched. All right. Over here's India. When Miss Coretta Scott King and Martin Luther King went to go visit India. All right, you see another picture down on this area. And when you take a look on this side, you're going to see this beautiful house that Dr. King is walking up to. And that's the house in Montgomery that he lived in when he was the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. All right? So you see some of the photographs next with the harassment of Dr. King and how they brought him in to try to arrest Dr. King during that period of time, with Mrs. King standing side by side with him, Miss Coretta Scott King. All right? And then over here we have a pretty, an exhibit on Dr. King when he was in Montgomery, and he was sitting at his kitchen table, and he was drinking a cup of coffee. And all of a sudden he heard a voice come out and told Dr. King, stand up for righteousness, stand up for justice, stand up for truth. And that's when he realized that the movement was so strong that he had to continuously keep on fighting for the movement. So we use this little scene, but if you ever go to Montgomery, you get a chance to see the actual table where Dr. King sat at and he talked about it. All right? So what me and Miss Diane are going to do now is that we're going to talk a little bit about what if Dr. King had a cell phone. All right? So when you look at this, it would say, who would he have called? Would he have called a Reverend Abernathy? Would he have called Reverend James Orange? Would he have called Jose Williams? Would he have called John Lewis? How would he have used a cell phone to organize nonviolent protests? All right? So you can see right here, and Dr. King in the movement. And you can see how they used the newspaper back during that period of time, the newspaper that carried it. All right, this was the editor of this newspaper, the Birmingham World. All right. And then on the back over here is, did the news come out immediately when Dr. King was a young leader? How can the speed of hearing about events change events? All right. News did not come out immediately. Dr. King and them actually had to march at a certain time. And they marched at a certain time so it can be on the 6 o'clock news. All right. So the news did not come out immediately. Not like in today's time that you could take your cell phone and all of a sudden, if you had an event happen, you could actually send the information on your cell phone and everybody would get the information during that period of time. So it's not like today. So they organized ride shares during the Montgomery Bus Boycott. All right. This is kind of interesting. Because when you see that they organized ride shares back during that period of time, if you think about it today, a ride share is something that you would probably call Uber. You'll probably call it Lyft. And back then, at the Montgomery Bus Boycott, a gentleman by the name of T.M. Alexander, he helped with Lloyd's of London to get insurance to come in. And when he came in with the insurance, they insured all the cars in order to transport people to get to their jobs, to get to their schools, or wherever they need to have to work at. All right? So you can see some of the ride shares, and if you look at it today, where they would have been able to tweet out the information, where they would have been able to go on the app and just try to figure out, what car is going to pick them up. So you can see the difference of technology and how effective technology has been today, and the reason why we're able to do the things we do today. All right. Not only was news moving slower in 1950 and 60, it was much more difficult to get the news out and to a greater number of people. But of course today, we can get a greater number of news out because we have the technology to be able to send the information out. Think about it. When incidents happen today, you can go on your cell phone and you can immediately record what the incidents that happen. All right? So think about today, if we did not have a cell phone, we would have been able to see George Floyd information so quickly. All right? So I just want to share that with you. Then we talked about some of with Dr. King, how would Dr. King be able to say, hey, I was successful in doing what I was doing if I had a cell phone? And you can see right here, like Time magazine, it would have been everywhere. People would have been able to know it. Can you imagine? Dr. King would have probably had over 300,000 likes if he would have had a cell phone during that period of time, which would have been pretty interesting. People would have been sharing it to all their friends and all their people to celebrate the greatness that he did during that period of time. So you can see how the cell phone and technology has changed things in today's time. So just want to share that with you, and you can see that information that was there. And then, of course, the I Have a Dream speech and how they could have recorded and sent it out to everybody, and instantly they would have been able to know about the I Have a Dream speech, which was given 57 years ago today, all right, on April 28th, all right? So that's how technology changed a lot of things. And then we also have, of course, if Dr. King would have traveled the world, you can use your navigator, you can use the app to kind of share with you what places you go eat at. How sometimes we get on the phone and we go into another city, and you can see where the best restaurants to go to. And that's what gives us that opportunity. But of course, during that period of time, they didn't have that opportunity to be able to navigate and do the things that they did. All right? So I share that because also you have what we call back then, what they call the encyclopedias. And a lot of the information people will go through and look through a book instead of going on the internet and getting instant information. We had to research it through what they call an encyclopedias. And if you don't know what encyclopedias is, you need to go and ask your parents, show me what an encyclopedia is so they can give you that information. All right? Right here is, where is the mall? It was in Washington, D.C. And of course, you can use your phone in today's time to navigate you, to put you right where you need to be at for the mall in Washington, D.C.
That's where Dr. King was. How many years ago today?
57 years ago today in Washington, D.C. And they're having a march today. So today they're having a march that's led by Reverend Al Sharpton and Martin Luther King's son. And they're going to be in Washington, D.C. today. So it's kind of like symbolic of what that day was 57 years ago. Okay? So y'all can follow me this way. But I want to do this before we go. I do want you to take a look at this real quick. And when you do your phone, your canned phone, I want you to get in contact with Miss Diane Bagon at nps.gov, all right? And then here's our mailing address right here, Martin Luther King Jr., National Historic Park, attention, Diane Bagon, 450 Auburn Avenue, Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, 30312. And this will be you're going to get a badge, and you're going to get a certificate signed by the superintendent of our park. All right? So we'll be probably showing you this again at the end so you can be able to remember. But I want to take you here so we can get a chance to see maybe a brief film. And also you can see some of the signs that protest signs that they had during that period of time. You can see some of the people who marched during the Lincoln Memorial.
Is this just a test that we're getting ready?
That's what we're doing. Now, the next time we go, it will be for real.
This is rare, early footage of the 27-year-old man who before long would become a legend. But in 1956, Martin Luther King Jr. was a little-known minister and the leader of a bus boycott in Montgomery, Alabama, that started when activist Rosa Parks refused to give up her seat to a white man.
This is a non-violent protest using the method of passive resistance.
Martin Luther King was a man of huge thoughtfulness about the strategy that he had asked those who followed him to use. And that strategy was that in the face of violence, you had the moral high ground if you did not return violence with violence.
Negro passengers have been humiliated, intimidated.
At first, the young minister who went by the unassuming name of M.L. King was only covered by black journalists writing for black papers.
In particular, the Birmingham World, a black newspaper, and its editor, Emory Jackson. He writes about, long before anyone else, that Dr. King is invoking Gandhian principles. He becomes referred to in the black press as the Black Moses. The white editors, they were just living in a different world.
The majority press, the white press, basically ignored African Americans. And not just episodes of violence against them, but achievements, anything to do with their daily life. Basically, flat out ignored them.
They didn't even often use the names of black people because that would be a sign of respect. It's galling now to look at the level of disregard and oblivion that was in the media at that time.
As long as you sit in the back, you have a false sense of inferiority. And so long as you let the white man sit in the front and push you back there, he has a false sense of superiority.
Montgomery Bus Boycott. Unbelievably successful from the very first day. And it took weeks to get a national reporter in there. I think it was 6 weeks before a news magazine came in, and then 12 weeks before a major newspaper came in.
We have no moral choice but to continue the struggle, not for ourselves alone, but for all America.
King developed a strategy of resistance that was designed to challenge the status quo while never making white America feel threatened. He consciously set about creating a character palatable to all of America. Martin Luther King understood that if you're only telling the story, among the black press and among black people, you're preaching to the choir. You've got to get outside the church.
What special instructions or advice had been given the Negro people?
If there is violence, that it must not come from Negro people.
King's efforts to woo the media started to pay off. Soon, King was the story, and the story was the movement.
More than 12 months now, we, the Negro citizens of Montgomery, have been engaged in a nonviolent protest.
The boycotters faced death threats and persecution, but under the leadership of Dr. King, they mounted a successful and peaceful campaign. Facing financial crisis and failing in the courts, the city of Montgomery relented and ordered that black passengers be allowed to sit anywhere.
America likes a winner. The media loves a frontrunner. One could argue that if Dr. King's first foray on national television had not been a success, would the media have turned around and gone home? I don't know. We'll never know, thank God.